I would like to say good evening to everybody and welcome. Today is July 13th, 2022, and it's 7 p.m. And I'll call to order the Committee of Infrastructure. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda or the city's website for the meeting link. Alderman-at-Large Michael B. O'Brien Sr. will be the presiding chair. I will now call the roll. Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Tyler Gaveva is busy with other important business this evening and will not be in attendance. Alderman Alex Como.
I am present via Zoom. I am traveling for business. I am not alone in the vehicle. I'm a passenger right now. I'm not driving, but I do have headphones in, so we do have some level of privacy.
Okay, very good. Welcome. Alderman Richard Dowd.
Present.
And Alderman Michael B. O'Brien Sr. is also present. Since we have one member of the committee on Zoom, all votes will be taken via roll call. Also in attendance will be Tim Cummings, Economic Development Director, and Mr. Sullivan from the Community Department as well. So welcome to tonight's meeting. I will now open up the first part of public comment. Is there anybody that would like to give public comment of any items that are going to be discussed on the agenda?
Lori Ortolano.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Did you say there are many items being discussed on the agenda or not many?
No, any items that are on the agenda. There is one, to give you the answer, that is just come up and it's going to come under suspension if the members so choose, and that's going to do with the intersection near the Franklin Street School, which is timely. It'll be explained later in the meeting, but it is timely. We are getting closer when the school will be opened.
Okay, I'd like my time to start now. I'm sure
Okay.
I was that. I'm concerned about the Riverwalk or Riverfront project about being developed and the costs of that project. I did not support that when it was voted on because I felt the bond price was high. And we were entering a time when material costs and delivery were changing a great deal. And I'm just going to express that when I did the search on the minutes and I looked at the overall discussion on that project, it was not well community vetted. I felt that while you may have done a master plan and had people come out and talk about what they wanted and had a big group, there's never any costing put on that. And when I looked at the record, it had been almost 2 years since the Board of Aldermen had brought that project up. And then very rapidly around the Christmas season, that bond got passed and off to the races we were. And I feel that that wasn't the proper way to reintroduce that for a vote of something of that much money and that magnitude. And I am concerned about costs on all these projects. I think you're going to see school costs go up. The Board of Aldermen hasn't had a review of the Performing Arts Center since last December. And again, that's a long stretch of time for project costs that are changing. And I'm very concerned about what's going on in the Office of Economic Development with Mr. Cummings. I think the board is not being careful and mindful about the number of projects he has going. It's an office of one man and one assistant. And I'm gonna guess he has 15 or 20 projects he's responsible for now, maybe pushing $100 million of value. How do you expect him, and why he doesn't comply with the right to know law? Because he's got too many irons in the fire and he doesn't feel he has to. You can't get minutes, you can't get records, you can't get posts. Nothing's available to the public. And I think it's corrupt, frankly, to allow somebody to have that much money and control over that much money and not have those meetings be public, those postings be timely and per the law, the records be available, and also not make themselves available to be able to respond to anyone in the community. You know, minutes in his office are completely inaccessible. It's a locked door I've gone for 3 years to City Hall. Never once has Tim Cummings' door been opened or unlocked when I've gone to it. I've
30
actually
seconds.
never run into him. So I'm tired of the law violations, and you people just keep dumping more and more city money onto him to manage, and I think it's just corrupt. He's the wrong person to handle that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chamber? There's nobody in the chamber. Anybody else on Zoom? Hold on for 1 second. We do have, I just let somebody in. Mr. T-Boom, I just let you in. Did you want to speak at public comment? Mr. T-Boom? Okay, seeing no other public comment, we'll now move to communications. We received 2 communications, one from Tim Cummings, Economic Development Director, and the reason is West Pearl Street Streetscaping Design and Construction Project. Second communication from Mr. Tim Cummings, Economic Development Director, and the reason is Downtown Riverfront TIF update. There being no objection, I'll accept the communications and place them on file. If I'm going to ask indulgence to go off the script, so to speak, due to the importance of this matter, and jump out of order into new business, where we can discuss ordinance 0-22-020, which is establishing one-way streets and changing the stop intersection near the Franklin Street School. Is there any objection to go out of order? Seeing none, we shall do so. So therefore, without objection, I'll suspend, I'm going to ask, without objection, to suspend the rules and to allow for ordinance 0-22-020 to be discussed and voted on, which will require immediate intention. I will now recommend Alderman Dowd.
Yes, this was inadvertently left off the agenda.
Oh, can we have a motion? Would you like to make a motion,
I'll
Alderman?
make a motion to so far suspend the rules to allow for consideration of ordinance 0-22-020. It should have been on tonight's agenda, and I'd like to talk to it.
Okay, that is the motion. Although in agreement, well, have to go by roll call. Alderman Jettie?
Yes.
Alderman Como?
Yes.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
And Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Okay, Alderman Dowd, would you like to make a motion on 0-22-20 and open it for discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage of 0-22-020 to the full board, and I'd like to speak to it.
Very good. Alderman Dowd.
Yes, this plan was put together in coordination with several of the staff at DPW, including the city engineer, Dan Hudson, Wayne Husband, and others, as well as the school department representatives and the architect representatives. The plan was put together to allow for a much safer use of this school building, and as far as traffic is concerned, and after several iterations of what we could do, this was the one that was finally approved by everybody, and we have vetted this with all the city departments. There's a couple of really minor changes.
Oh, that hole.
But
Excuse me, Alderman Dowd. Excuse me, Mr. T-Boom, we are getting some background noise from your area. If you could go on to
Turn down a
mute.
little bit. Hello?
Yes, could you go on mute, please, sir?
You shut off. I'm talking to the committee here. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can hear other things.
Oh, here, yeah.
Why is it so loud?
Hello.
Why is it so loud?
Yeah, can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I can hear you, Alderman T-Boom. Could you go on?
Okay,
former.
I want to mention that the other day, I listened to the committee.
Mr. T-Boom, we already had public comment.
Well, you didn't pick me up. What happened?
Well, we're in the middle of discussing a particular ordinance right now, sir. We're gonna have public comment at the end of the meeting, sir. Okay?
I'm sorry, I thought I was talking to public comment, you cut me off.
Mr. T. Bloom, all I can say is the meeting starts at 7 PM, sir.
I was here at 7, but you cut me off. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. I'll
All right,
continue,
following-
Alderman Dow.
Following on, we have, as I said, we work with the fire department, the police department, the Department of Public Works, and everyone is in agreement with this. The reason that it's timely is that this has to be in place even before school starts, so people can get used to the traffic flow and
Excuse me, Alderman Dowd. Miss Ortolano, you also have some background noise coming through. Could you go on mute, please?
So sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. Yeah, the dog.
Thank you.
Okay, so, this, when passed, will allow DPW to do the changes to the street and the signage, for the safety of the school. And, it allows for parent drop-off in the front of the school, and bus drop-off on the east side of the school. And the traffic flow keeps all of the traffic from interfering with one another, and it provides for the safety because the children attending the school are very young, preschool, and when you're parking on Franklin Street and opening doors on either side of the car to allow little kids out, we need to make it as safe as possible. So this plan has been approved by DPW, City Engineering, and Traffic. So this is the plan we want to put in effect. We want to get it passed tonight in this committee so it can be taken up on the 18th and for final approval at the special Board of Aldermen meeting that was just called today. And get this so that DPW can start working on all the changes. They have to put in the new lineage, the signs, and get that all in place and get the traffic flowing before school starts so people are aware of how the traffic flows. If there are any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Down. Any questions from members of the committee? Alderman Jettie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as I look at the plan that's been submitted, I'm looking at, it looks like Franklin Street is going to be, continue to be two-way up to Locust Street.
Yes.
And Locust is southerly, it's going to be one-way southerly. Is there anything controlling the intersection of Locust and Franklin?
There is signage that's going to be put in place both before they approach that intersection and at the intersection to ensure that people know that they can keep continuing on one way of Franklin Street, or they would have to either turn into the parking lot and go up to Winter Street, but what would happen is cars are probably going to get used to going Green Street to Winter Street into that parking lot, and then possibly through the parking lot to park on the south side of Franklin Street for the apartment building. But all of that has been discussed and worked out with the DPW.
Okay, I'm sure that, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Follow up? Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that the city engineer and the traffic engineer have properly vetted this. I'm just curious. So traffic coming, southerly on Locust Street can still take a left turn onto Franklin Street to go to Main Street, or take a right turn to go the other way. I'm just wondering about, traffic coming westerly on Franklin Street. Is there a stop sign or something that controls the intersection, so
Yes, there are several signs that are going in there.
stop signs or?
Stop signs, yes, stop signs and signs that say right turn only. And same thing on Franklin Street, it will show that Franklin Street is one way. And there'll be several signs put in at the corners of Terrace Street and Charles Street and Winter Street, you know, so DPW's got all the signage, and it's pretty much all listed on this plan. I know it's very small type. That's why I keep changing glasses. But we have gone through this in multiple details. We've had several iterations, and this has, again, been vetted with the fire department, the police department, and everybody's on board with it.
Okay, I'll trust that that's,
Oh, trust me, it's a school, so we're very careful about it.
yep. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from members on Zoom or in the chamber? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. On ordinance 22-020, establishing one-way streets and changing stop intersection near the Franklin Street School. It will be by roll call. Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Como.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. We have 4 yeas, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, now, thank you for your indulgence. We will now go back to the regular items on the agenda. And that's going to be a discussion and final approval of the West Pearl Street construction and design project. And I'm going to recognize the Economic Development Director, Mr. Tim Cummings.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development. I'm here this evening because I wanted to, and I'm going to just share my screen here. So hopefully you're seeing those who are participating remotely, and then also here in the chamber. A memo I submitted to you that's in your packet. I am here this evening just to clear up any type of ambiguity that may have arisen relative to the West Pearl Street streetscaping project. I had come before you back in the December, January, February, or the winter time frame on this project, and I wanted to come back before you again to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the design and ultimately what will be the follow-on construction for the streetscaping project on West Pearl Street. So my memo speaks to that in detail, and I am going to stop sharing my screen here and move to if you can see my screen, I'm going to move to the PowerPoint that I provided at the project's inception, and I guess I was here before you in December of 2021, where I outlined what the goals were, the mission. I'm not going to go through this verbatim because you've all seen this before, but I outlined the vision, the values, the project goals, talking about the area, which is essentially the Main to Walnut Street project area, which with West Pearl Street and Elm Street running. Then we talked about what makes a streetscape successful. And we talked about the existing conditions and what it currently looks like. We talked about, again, the existing conditions. We showed you the existing conditions as to what it would look like at a different viewpoint and how we want to improve it by basically making it pedestrian friendly. with some wider sidewalks, create some ADA compliance that we technically don't have, we don't have a good handle on right now. And overall, just, improve the infrastructure of the West Pearl Street. So moving on from that, we got into a very specific conversation about what you could see for potential opportunities. We talked about this with some plantings, and we talked about this as opportunities for some public art. We talked about, where some street furnishings could go and how we'd create a gateway. We also laid it out in two different types of options, what we refer to as option A and option B. We compared the two. It was the prevailing thought of the committee at the time that we should, move in the direction of option B, and that is the direction that the design was predicated on. We talked about the plantings. We talked about how we were going to do some street furniture and outdoor dining and some benches and some seating. We outlined that. And then just want to get to the last slide here. Which, again, is all these different elements that we talked about implementing. And then we got to the real crux of it, which was the question that was before you at the time was option A or option B. It was the consensus of the group that we should really move towards option B if that was practical or if that made sense. And so that's a summary as to what happened in the December conversation. I thought I had good direction. It was good stead. I was in good stead, but we moved on from there, continued the design, and we have final design before us. And so I wanted to, again, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second, move to the next PowerPoint, which shows in more detail what I just talked about. And so I had this developed by the design team. This was sent to me on July 12th. I will forward along to you. But again, it kind of shows this is the final design. And so this is exactly what was given to me as direction, and this is what we did. We created the additional parking down along here and along here. We had to flip the sides of the street, but you didn't lose any of the parking. We consolidated all the parking as described in that quote-unquote Plan B. The plantings, as described previously, are going to be outlined here with these green dots. The maroon shows where the sidewalks would be expanding. The green shows where the plantings would occur. And then finally, I'm going to just show you with the yellow. These are where the highlights are for the lighting. And this is what has been detailed out and what we would be looking to construct to give you a visual imagery of what we're talking about. These are the furnishings, these are the lightscapes, these are the plantings, these are the gateway entrance type things, following all the precedent of Main Street. So, this would be, to work in complement to the work that was started on Main Street. Here's the plantings and the flowers. All this has been vetted by our Parks and Rec department and the Parks and Rec director. And I'll close my comments by saying that it's been reviewed by all the professional and technical staff here in the city. And we've incorporated all their comments and have worked to get this to a place where we can get it out to construction. I am very grateful that a bond was authorized for this, and I'd like to continue proceeding forward. I'm going to make sure I meet with the Downtown Improvement Committee and the Board of Public Works to review this one more time with them all. I'll be doing that over the next month or so. But in tandem with that, I'd be looking to put forward contracts to move towards the construction of this project. Ideally, I'd like to get this under construction sometime this fall, if possible. But at the latest, we'd be looking to get it under construction next spring. So I'll leave my comments there. But again, Mr. Chair, if I could, get a final sign off on this, I'd greatly appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Director Cummings. Alderman Dowd, if you could hold on for 1 second. So I think this evening what Director Cummings is, just to reiterate, what he's looking for is approval from this board that he's doing a good job. We like what we see, to move it forward so we can start more solid on this particular project. The other thing is just additional information. I have been approached by some of the vendors. I did have communications with Mr. Cummings. Some of the people that own shops, they're showing interest in trying to secure questions on whether there is grants to improve the front of their storefronts and stuff like that. This is exactly, in my opinion, what we kind of would like to see out of this. It will be the enhancing. And let's keep in mind, this is the first street of many. We're not going to be really done with this. We got other streets that are coming off Main that are going to need vital attention to. And so this will make this much more beautification of the city. So Alderman Dow, please.
I just have a couple questions. One, I assume that the cost of the project includes the reorientation of the traffic lights on Main Street?
So again, to be clear, that would be if we did the reversal of West Pearl, when this would not do the reversal of West Pearl, but it's been designed in a way to accommodate it when it occurs. Or if it occurs, I believe it will occur. I shouldn't have said when, I should say if it occurs.
Mm-hmm. I know all the vendors on Pearl Street would like to see that happen at some point. Just for traffic flow and in the area would improve it significantly. And I guess if we do that, there will also be the reorientation of what I'll call Pennachuck Square.
Yeah, yes, that would need to occur.
Which is overdue for being fixed. But I think that this will lend itself to a street that's been sort of forgotten over the years and isn't sort of forgotten. And I think this will not only improve this street, but will also improve the people that have stores on this street, and will make it much more viable going forward. And the beautification of this street just blends right in with the new Performing Arts Center, which I went by today, and that thing is moving like crazy. That is not that far off. But I think we're on the right track here.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Como.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My only question through you to Director Cummings is on the far west side of this map that I'm seeing on the screen here. Is this going to be designed in such a way that we're not going to have to, rip anything up and redo this when we do the squaring off of the Walnut Street area, the Pennachuck area? Is this going to be, once we do this beautification and the streetscaping and everything, is that going to accommodate that new traffic flow, or are we going to have to do modifications to this intersection?
If I may, Mr.
Director Cummings.
Yeah, that's to Alderman Como's point. That's exactly why we're doing it together with the squaring off of the Walnut Ovals, because we don't want to have to go back and rip this up. And so, to answer his point, it will be to answer his question, we are doing it in a way to make it as efficient as possible, so nothing would be ripped up that gets put down. And that's why that's why we paired it with the Walnut Street squaring off.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Okay, Director Cummings, I know it's a separate issue with changing the traffic pattern, but when do you anticipate that discussion? I'm just trying to plan in my mind for this particular committee. When do you think that would be best to bring forward to come to look at that?
I know it's a major priority. I've been working internally to try to advance it. I think with the approval of the ARPA funds, it's a conversation that I think we'll be having actually next couple months. I would say early fall. And in fact, If you wanted to set a meeting, maybe either at your August meeting as an agenda item, I'd be happy to come before you and make sure City Engineer Hudson is with us to start that conversation, but otherwise we could do it in September.
Okay. And on something, a direct question, on something as important as that, should we announce it to the public or just have it within the regular infrastructure format meeting and hoping that the public, if they pro or con on the issue, would attend?
I think always encouraging public participation is good. I think that this would be the start of the conversation.
Okay.
I think there'll be multiple follow-ons with community meetings and engagement that would happen actually outside of the infrastructure committee. And then it would be reported back to you as well as the Board of Public Works. So I think starting the process now would be good. We have and so with the start of that, I would encourage everyone to take a look at the downtown circulation study that was done by VHB. It's up on the city's website. That would be the backbone or the genesis of what will be the follow-on conversations that we'll be having. And it would be good to orientate yourself with that document because it would help with the conversation that we are about to have.
Very good. And I think you and I will be having meetings to present this to the board, so looking forward. Okay, the question before us is to give Director Cummings a vote of confidence that he's headed in the correct direction with this particular project. We're still open for discussion. Anybody have any further comment? Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm generally in favor of this, and I don't want to, throw cold water on it, but I am concerned. You know, when I hear Director Cummings talk about how we picked we made a choice between Plan A and Plan B. You know, I'm quickly looking through the minutes, and I don't see that. You know, and I guess I'm concerned, and now I think we're seeing this for the first time. You know, it's on the screen. It's hard to. I can't. Maybe it's just because of my particular eyesight, but I can't really make out any of the detail. And you're asking, you know, to tell Director Cummings that he's on the right track. You know, I'm afraid that, you know, I don't want to offend anyone, and I'm a fan of Director Cummings. I want to work with Director Cummings. But I feel like, you know, we have these meetings, we have these informal discussions, and then he gets a message that, that it's his interpretation of the discussion without there being any formal vote. And you know, he's doing the best he can with the information his interpretation of what we're saying. But I'm not sure that we're saying anything. You know, the way committees work is that, you know, we take votes, and somebody makes a motion, we discuss it, and it's voted up or down, and then the committee's made a decision. But you know, when we this last thing, you know, the vote. As far as I know, the only thing we voted on was, you know, telling Mr. Cummings, yeah, the motion was to give Director Cummings permission to continue to explore this and come back with more details later. And, then we were presented with a request for a bond, and, I thought we were going to get more details as to the plan. You know, some of us thought that his coming back with the bond was the details that they were looking for. That certainly wasn't my interpretation, but I'm only one person here, you know, only
Right,
one
well,
member.
Alderman Jettie, you're more than one person. I think, you gotta look at it in many different directions, but also too, I consider us very fortunate to have Director Cummings to bring it up at the different levels that, he is bringing it up, to get the, clarification, because this is a project that's gonna have a long impact on the city. I don't know when last time, Pearl Street was, landscaped, and I think it was, maybe 15 years ago. It's timely, it needs to be done. But this will probably have a life expectancy of 20+ years. And so I think it's something, it's not a hot button issue, but it's something that I think I'm very appreciative that Director Cummings is coming before the Infrastructure Committee to get the input. That's our duty as being on infrastructure, to do the homework so that we can make a final and good recommendation to the full board. And hopefully they trust what this committee has done due diligence and has done it. Alderman Dow.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Cummings. If we give you permission to go forward, you're gonna go with the design firm to do the advanced design. And I assume you'll be coming back to either this committee or the Board of Aldermen with some of the design options that company comes up with before you start putting flowers in the ground and planting trees. Is that correct?
Well, I guess it's a good question. I'm glad we're having this clarification. The two design options were design option A and design option B. And I was remembering the conversation, and I could be wrong here, but I was remembering the conversation that we had in December, that the preference was option B, plan B. And the reason why I remember that so distinctly is because I was surprised by that takeaway, because I was actually thinking to myself that actually the other plan was the plan that would prevail, because the parking would not be in front of the door, but actually, and that's what Plan A kind of shows, is carved out parking in and along the way. I remember Alderman Dowd saying something about how that would actually make it more difficult to clear the street, and the sidewalks and whatnot. And so the committee kind of came to the commentary of Plan B made the most sense, which consolidated all the parking. But the trade-off to that is you wouldn't necessarily have all the parking in front of every single door. So with that being said, if I misrepresented that again, I apologize, Alderman Jettie. But nonetheless, I proceeded with the direction of moving forward to this plan here, which I think is more or less representative of what the community wants, which is expanded sidewalks, more street trees, some outdoor furniture, and making sure it's designed in a way that can accommodate the reversal of West Pearl Street. So, this gets down to the nitty-gritty to answer the question of actually where the trees would go. And then what you're seeing on the screen is where the trees are being suggested. It was vetted by the DPW and all the various utilities to make sure that where the trees are sited on this plan right before you is appropriate. And so we could make changes to this plan now if that's the pleasure of the group, but it is at that stage or at that point.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up?
Yeah, just one other thing. It's my understanding that the old bank across the street from the Performing Arts Center is going to be turned into law offices. It's not going to be a restaurant, so the parking is not going to be as intense because of that building. So, and that parking lot possibly can be shared for use with the Performing Arts Center, et cetera.
Yeah.
Also, I think that when we discussed this with the previous meetings, I don't think we took a formal vote on A or B. I think it was just the consensus.
Yes.
So we didn't take a vote, but the consensus was B.
That's correct, Alderman Dowd. That was my understanding.
Ditto, same here. Thank you, Alderman Dowd. Alderman Como?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had two quick things. First, what Alderman Dow just mentioned, my recollection for that meeting was the same. I don't think we took a formal vote, but my understanding was that based on the discussions of some of the specific elements, like the parking and whether we were going to do the parking along the north side and things like that, the result of the discussion, I think, was what led Director Cummings to choose the second plan more so than an actual formal vote. And the second thing was, this might be slightly off topic, but if I could ask through you, Mr. Chair, to Director Cummings, I've had some contact from constituents that were curious about the adding of some signage. There was a concern that when you're traveling along Main Street, there's not adequate signage directing people towards the Broad Street Parkway. And I know that we're going to potentially be reversing Pearl Street in the future, but will this plan, the streetscaping that we're looking at now, include some signage in one direction or the other that directs people towards parking availability, access to the parkway, things like that? Are we going to have some increased signage in this plan?
If I may, so this does not include that, but that's a great comment, and we could add some signage. I'd be cautious that the city went through a huge, extensive wayfinding signage package program about 5 years ago, where we did put in some wayfinding signage. So if we need more, or if there's a missing place where we didn't necessarily put that in, I mean, we could definitely accommodate that. I would just need to kind of connect with Alderman Como offline, get a little bit more detail, see if we might be able to get one of those parking signs up in the space that maybe it would be appropriate.
Yeah, Alderman Como, if I may, we've had this conversation offline with Director Cummings, but probably it might be better to discuss this when we change, or if we change the traffic pattern on Pearl Street. That means some signage is going to need to be updated. So at that particular time, I think we could look at the whole complete wayfinding project.
If I could ask,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, Alderman Como, is the concern signage for parking off of Main Street?
So the email that I received was from someone who was complaining that when they're traveling along Main Street, there's no signage directing them how to get to the Broad Street Parkway. And then in a follow-up conversation, I've heard that there's it's not incredibly obvious how to get to some of the garages and the other lots from Main Street. So I know right now with the way Pearl Street's oriented, we could potentially have a sign pointing towards the parkway or how to get to the High Street or the Elm Street garages. And that might change when we reverse the direction. But I think the concern is for travelers along Main Street looking for either off Main Street parking or access to the parkway. That was the number one concern I was hearing.
So I would be happy to I'm going to have to work in conjunction with the streets department at the Department of Public Works to work through some of this, because when it's not a parking sign and it's a Veterans Memorial Parkway sign, that becomes their jurisdiction. Not to kind of confuse people with the details, we will work towards getting that addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, I was just going to concur that those signs wouldn't be part of this project. The signs could probably be used today. I had similar correspondence from constituents that say if you're on Main Street, there's no signs that point to the Veterans Memorial Parkway. And Pearl Street would be one where you'd need it, possibly Franklin Street and possibly West Hollow Street. So it's not just one place. And I think you can also get confused as you're going around the Pennachuck Square as to how you get to the parkway. Once you get to the Bronstein Apartments, you're pretty well locked into it, so it's not a problem. And I think that also when you come in off the parkway and get right about where the Bronstein Park is, signs for parking and Main Street this way may be lacking. So it is a DPW issue, so I think it's something that should be done in concert with DPW.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, you may.
Mr. Chair, I think you raised a great point. I think it's a little bit more holistic of an issue. It's more than just West Pearl Street. I think the point is well taken that there's maybe some gaps and some deficiencies. I think it would be the most efficient or most prudent thing to do is to wait till we actually know and we're settled with the way the traffic is going to be flowing. And when we do that, we can wrap that into that project to make sure we get the signage appropriate. Because I think to Alderman Dowd's point, not only are we gonna have to reorientate the traffic signals, there's gonna be a signage component to that as well.
Very good. Alderman Como, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Yes,
And-
sir.
Yes, and to the members of the committee, excuse me. I introduced Director Cummings, but we got into discussion before we had a pending motion. I know you're in your travels. Are you prepared to make that motion? I have
To
it.
make a motion,
I can read it, and if you agree, we'll make it your motion, if
Sure.
that helps you.
absolutely.
Okay, there will be a pending motion by Alderman Como to approve the design project and proceed with the construction of the West Pearl Street streetscaping project. And that'll be your motion, Alderman Como.
So moved.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as you point out, this is gonna have a long lifespan. It's gonna, it's a project that, is gonna, improve West Pearl Street, and, it's something that we're gonna be, whatever we do, we're gonna be living with for, as you point out, a number of years. And so, for that reason, I would be more comfortable if I could, if we could, I know we're having a rapid succession of meetings, so maybe, if we could postpone this until the next meeting to give us a chance to look at this, look at this plan. It's probably fine, but I'm just uncomfortable with, I hate to use the term, but I will, rubber stamping something that we really don't know. I mean, I'm sure I'm not, unless other people have seen this plan, I'm sure I'm not the only one who cannot, identify what all those words are up there. So if we could just have the time between now and the next meeting to look at it and, come up with any further, questions. Right now, I can't vote for this. I really don't know what it says.
Well, Alderman Jettie, your choices are this. You can exercise your right to vote, yea or nay, or you can make a motion to postpone.
Okay, well, thank you for pointing that out. So, I'll move to table this until our next meeting.
Okay, we have a motion tabling. There'll be no discussion on the tabling motion. So therefore, call the roll call vote is to table it. Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Como,
No.
Alderman Dowd,
No,
Alderman O'Brien votes no, the motion fails. Tabling fails. Okay, further discussion on the project. Alderman Dowd.
yeah, most of the words that are on this chart are just the names of stores. I don't see any other words that define anything else, and I think looking at this more than we're looking at it right now is not gonna give you any more detail. So looking at this, postponing to look at this plan more is not gonna help you. I don't know what specifics you might be looking at, but it's not gonna be in that plan. So, I go out on a limb and say that Director Cummings will be working with us, on a timely basis as this moves forward, so they don't do anything that we don't approve of.
Okay, further comment? If not, I'll call for the vote. Alderman Como.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say real briefly, I wholeheartedly agree with the comments that Alderman Jettie made. And I too would never vote for something that I didn't fully understand or that I felt like I needed to get more information on. But the reason I didn't support tabling this is because I feel like we do have a pretty good idea of what the plan entails. And I think we've had a number of good presentations from Director Cummings, enough that I do feel comfortable moving forward with this at this time.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Alderman Jettie.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as we look at the plan, the stuff that's in brown, is it brown? Is that the color?
Mhm.
Could you tell me again, what's the brown stuff?
Right here, this, that's what you're asking about?
Yes, yeah.
Yep. So the most efficient way to, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. The most efficient way to do this project is to use our existing curb as much as possible. And so we're gonna reuse the current curb where we can. And so you're bumping that curb out. And so that's a new curb line that gets set. And this brownish maroon color represents brick. That would be like a brick extension to the sidewalk that would abut up against it. And that's all that really shows. Is it's a very efficient way to expand a sidewalk and accomplish the goal of trying to expand sidewalks as well as not make it cost prohibitive.
Thank you.
Okay.
Follow up?
And so on the north side of Pearl Street, so there's a green, what's the green part?
Plantings.
Plantings, okay. And like there's an indentation in front of what I think is Ace Hardware and National Wallpaper. Is that?
Right here, is this what you're talking
Yeah.
about? This?
Yeah.
This right here? The yellow represents light. Those is where you're gonna have lights.
But the road seems larger. Is that to accommodate parking there?
Oh,
Yes.
So you're talking about this right here?
Yeah.
Yes, this is where parking would be.
Okay, and right now there's parking all along there, isn't there? So we're gonna be removing some of the parking?
Not on that side. I think if there's a removal of parking, I think it's actually on the other side. I believe the current parking configuration, this is the current parking that's there.
Okay. So where is the sidewalk going to be expanded? The current width of the sidewalk. It looks like the sidewalk in front of, like the Dick LaRose alley or way or whatever. That looks,
Right here?
yeah.
Right.
The sidewalk looks bigger there than it does in
That's-
front of,
That's the existing condition. So this is currently there. And this is how it is. And then it tapers down dramatically to this. And so all that's happening is a little bit of a reorientation right here. And the sidewalk only gets expanded a little bit along this north side.
okay. And isn't there parking all the way to Walnut Street now? We're gonna, in front of the pizza place?
I don't know where the exact parking ends. I would have to double check that with looking at a prior plan, but I don't believe it goes all the way to the corner. I think there's usually like a 20 or 25 foot setback from a corner. So I mean, I would have to believe it probably stops somewhere around here.
Currently?
Yeah, currently.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, members of the committee? Seeing none, we have a motion by Alderman Como to approve the design project to proceed with the construction of West Pearl Street streetscaping project. Roll call vote, Alderman Jettie,
No.
Alderman Como,
Yes.
Alderman Dow,
Yes.
and Alderman O'Brien votes yes. That is 3 yeas, 1 nays. Motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is update on the Riverfront project. And I think this is Alderman Dow, yes?
Yeah, I didn't want to wait till after the vote, but I just make one comment. Where we're putting the bricks, make sure that that base isn't sand and those aren't half bricks.
Okay, will do.
And if you want the history behind that, get in touch with me.
I will reach out to you offline.
Otherwise, you're wasting money.
You said not sand and not half brick?
Right.
Okay.
I'll get in more detail.
They float.
Okay, thank you.
We live in a frost area. Okay, next on the agenda is update on the Riverfront project. There's no pending motion, no direction I think you needed by Director Cummings, so this is more giving us an opportunity to educate ourselves with the Riverfront project. That being said, I would like to introduce Economic Development Director Tim Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development. I requested this meeting because I wanted to proactively provide you all with a status update on the TIF. I had recognized the fact that it had been a little while since I'd come before you to give you a status update. And the reason why is because there really hasn't been much progress. And so I thought it would be good just to give you an update, provide you an opportunity to ask some questions, and kind of plot out where we're headed over the next few months as I'm understanding it and seeing it. So I submitted a memo to you that basically outlines why we haven't seen much progress. The pandemic has waylaid the design that originally I had anticipated being much further along. And then we are currently under a permitting process, and we're going through that process now, and that's going well. But then in addition to that, just the current market conditions are a concern. You know, we all know construction costs are raising all across the board with all different types of projects. And so, although I don't have anything official to report, I do foresee that there is some, you know, some possibility that the construction costs may increase on this project. That does not mean that we're going to necessarily need to ask for more money. It just means that we might not be able to buy as much as we originally anticipated. And so I'm going to move from this memo that's submitted to you, and I'm actually going to go to I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and go to a presentation that I gave back in December. December of 21, and I sort of updated it a little bit with just some minor, I apologize, with some minor adjustments that I just thought would help orientate this conversation. So, as well as just provide you all with an overall status update. So I'm going to share my screen again. And so this is the presentation that you saw back in December of 21. And everything we're doing is predicated after the master plan. The master plan, I heard comments earlier that it wasn't costed appropriately or early on. This plan had detailed cost analysis to it. It's part of that report. So there was costing done. This report talked about 4 phases of a master plan for the downtown riverfront. Our implementation is really on 2 of the 4 phases, and everything that the TIF is predicated on follows the direction of this master plan. So again, I don't want to go through these slides in verbatim, but you know, you can see here we're still trying to accomplish the same purposes. Same design team that's working on this. There has been a little change in the fact that VHB was the lead design team, and all these other contractors, for the most part, reported directly to VHB. Just due to the capacity issues with VHB, they've asked us to relook at that, and they're asking us to work with these individual firms now directly. So we're taking on a little bit more of a coordination role. And when I say we, it's really John Vancor from Hayner Swanson that's doing that. He was procured originally to be a project manager for the project. He's still staying in that role. But I say that to you because if you see more contracts coming before you in the coming months, it's because previously you had a VHB contract, and that VHB contract contemplated all these others as subcontractors to them. And now it's going to be just changed up where some of these subcontractors are going to be reporting directly to us and wouldn't be subs to VHB. But that is still that's still evolving. But I wanted to make you aware of that. 2BD on the construction manager. Again, we haven't put them under contract yet, but it was understood that after a request for qualifications process, an RFQ process, Harvey Construction would be the construction manager for the project. So that is again a contract that would be coming before you over the coming weeks and or months as we continue to progress the project. Same project area, I'm not really going to talk about that. It's bracketed by now the Veterans Memorial Parkway, and what we refer to as the Pan Am Railroad Bridge, but I'll note that Pan Am is selling this bridge, so we may start referring it differently moving forward. So here's where I really wanted to kind of just call your attention out. I had originally represented that we were going to start construction in 2022. And that was my original intention, but it was predicated on the thought that I would actually get into design through this time period here. And by no fault of anyone's, it's just anyone who's been trying to do capital projects right now know that the designers, civil engineers and architects are just really busy. There was pent-up demand with all the backlog due to the pandemic, and we originally had anticipated getting, final design proposals back in, I would say, late winter, and we actually only just got them recently, and I think I have just filed them with the Board of Aldermen. So, there was a good little delay in here. And so because of that, I just wanted to flag for you all that, we're probably not going to start construction until 23 now, spring of 23, which actually can, as Harvey's pointed out to us, that can work in our favor. Oftentimes you try to bid projects in the late fall, early winter to start in a spring construction season. And so that may work towards our benefit, but nonetheless, I just wanted to again flag that for you all, so everyone is aware. Here is the resolution. Not going to really go into too much detail there. There's no changes here either, but this is what I wanted to kind of flag for you. So we talked about all these individual projects, and I'll go through them at the end of this project here. But we talked about prioritizing the red. And we knew that total was going to be just under 12 million. Obviously, with the delay now that I'm talking about, I don't think it's going to be, too big of a difference, but I don't know. But I wanted to flag for you that there may be a difference. And as we get more details on that, these numbers may probably will increase. And that, again, I want to emphasize, that doesn't mean that the bond authorization may change. What it means is some of these projects in red won't be prioritized, and I'll come back before you and talk to you about that so we can have a discussion about where it is that you're thinking that we should put our money, and where is it that maybe we can hold off until we achieve more money in the TIF to be able to afford these projects. So talking a little bit about the individual projects, and so I'm just going to take this opportunity to kind of walk through if I've seen any design changes that are different than what has been previously represented. So I'm going to start over here and talk about the new ADA ramp. Now this one that's this area right here. No changes there, and actually I'm proud to report this individualized element is actually at 100% design. So, I mean, in theory, we could start construction on this project right now. The reason why we have been holding off is because I would hate for us to waste city money on paying general conditions type of expense on, whatever this may be, 13 individual items, when we had procured Harvey to act as a construction manager, and we would have just one general condition type of expense if we align this with all the other projects. So that's something that we could talk about, but nonetheless, I wanted to provide you that update. No real changes all through here. Now, a good development that's occurred recently, we have a crosswalk slated for over here. Back in December, I was never able to report to you this new piece, which is in this last spring, through the hard work actually of Director Sullivan, he was able to secure for us some CDBG funding that is going to allow us to put in this crosswalk right in through here, and we won't necessarily need to use the bond authorization funding through the TIF, which just allows us to use that money that we had allocated towards this differently. No changes in through here. No changes in through here than what we previously talked about, though I'll note that we've had some comments from our permitting, from the state permitting folks, DES. They have raised some concerns about the design. They've asked some questions of us. When we continue the design, we may need to make adjustments. I am hoping that doesn't add any additional costs. I don't know. Everything we're doing is to try to have a cost avoidance, but we won't really know where we stand with that until we get through the state permitting process, and that is ongoing right now. And again, that's all part of our plan and part of the timeline that was originally contemplated. No real changes over here. No changes over here at Bicentennial Park. Everything that was previously discussed is what is going to continue to move forward. Now moving to the north side of the river, no real changes over here. Everything that was previously discussed is still continuing on as is. Same with along here. This is another boardwalk, and this is what we refer to as the shielding or screening of the substation. We're continuing to work through that with Eversource. Eversource has not signed off on the final design, but they've seen all the same images that you've seen, and we've gotten positive feedback from them, but I can't represent to you that we can move forward yet on this until we have their buy-in and support, and it's trending in a good direction, but that hasn't happened yet. Moving on from there, no real changes in and along through here. All this still stays the same. The biggest change is relative to the floating dock. Originally, it was contemplated to be up in and around here. It's looking that it's going to be in and around here, but I'm going to caution everyone that as we're continuing with the design, as we're continuing with the conversation with the permitting agencies, both at the federal and state level, because this triggers a U.S. Army Corps review, there has been some questions raised, and we may need to move the placement of this dock. And so There'll be more discussion on that with the design professionals and the permitting agencies as time goes on, but it was at least initially flagged for me that this is something that we need to be aware of. Again, nothing really new over here, and before I jump to the other side, I guess if I may, Mr. Chair, this may be a good time to kind of take some questions about the west side of the river. Hearing and
I don't see
seeing
any.
none. Okay, Mr. Chair, yeah, hearing and seeing none, I'm gonna skip over to the east side of the river. I'm not gonna go through these pictures because you've seen them all before. So now we're on the east side. And really, if you remember back to one of the earlier slides, I had all the red as being the prioritized projects. That was really the west side projects. East side projects would be if we had the discretionary money, we would do these projects. And the only one we really thought we would be able to possibly advance is the pedestrian bridge right here. Then that's really being prioritized because this current bridge, the Pan Am Railroad crossing bridge, is in pretty dire strait. It's been recommended to us that we look at doing some sort of decommissioning of it. So we would really like to try to do this new pedestrian bridge. But otherwise, along this side of the river, no real design changes have changed. Everything that was contemplated originally along here would still stay the same. Everything along here would, as originally contemplated, would still stay the same. I can report to you that we're nearing final design on the pedestrian bridge, the new pedestrian bridge right here, and there's no design changes here. There may be some proposed design changes along here with the BAE parking lot and the new pedestrian path that is being discussed that would connect up onto the existing Riverwalk and the pedestrian path up in through here. But we're still too early yet in that conversation, and this has not been the most highly prioritized project due to funding constraints and where we are in relative to design. So I think once we understand what we have for capacity, we will move this along appropriately. But I wanted to just point out to you that I anticipate there may be some redesign necessary in and along through here. But that's pretty much where we're at for just an overall very high level status update with the project. I guess I'll close my comments by saying that I don't know if you have all noticed, but the landscaping has been occurring regularly out by the riverfront. We've gotten good feedback on that. We will continue to do that level of landscaping moving forward. This group, when I say this group, to be clear, the Board of Aldermen has already authorized a multi-year contract for the landscaper to continue with the landscaping in this area. So I don't hear any real negative comments. I actually was out there today walking the riverfront with the folks at Jackson Falls, because I think there is some areas where we could make some improvements and along here from a landscaping perspective. And we will ask the landscaper to do that. In fact, I have a meeting with the landscaper on this issue on August 1st. But overall, I think folks could say that the area has seen an improvement with the extra landscaping that's occurred over the last few years, and will continue to do the same level of maintenance moving forward. I'll leave my comments there, Mr. Chair, but I did want to provide everyone with the status update.
Very good. We do have one question, Alderman Como.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Director Cummings, I just had a question about the pedestrian bridge. You mentioned that it had gone through, it was almost finished with the design process, and that it was, if I understand you correctly, that this sort of things on the east side were going to be if we had the funding available to do it. Has there been any discussion? I know we just purchased a bridge to put in Mine Falls Park temporarily while we rebuild the bridge by the high school. And the discussion at the time was when we were finished with that, we might be able to resell it to recoup some of that money. Instead of reselling it, is it possible to use that bridge that's going to be temporarily located at the high school for this project once it's no longer needed in Mine Falls Park?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually asked Director Photo that a couple months back, and I was told for various reasons that that may not be appropriate. I think that the span, and I'll double check this with my design professionals, but I think the current span for this bridge is different than the span that they actually have, they've obtained. So, but I did ask and inquire, and I don't think that's going to be a fit, but I will double check that.
Alderman Dow?
Yeah, there's a particular company I have some familiarity with in the area that are looking forward to this bridge. The old Pan Am Bridge is not a great place to go across. It's kind of dangerous. And when CFX takes control, they may not allow any transportation across it, foot traffic. So, and there are a number of people that work downtown that do this route up one side of the river and down the other at noontime, almost every noon. I mean, if you go out there, you'll see a whole bunch of people. And that bridge certainly would assist in the circulation.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Cummings.
Yeah, Alderman Dowd said it right, and that's the reason why we're doing it. We're doing this project. I mean, don't forget, BAE, one of or the largest employer in the state of New Hampshire, has almost 3,000 people right here. And if we can, and when we talk about one of our priorities being unlocking and untapping that economic development potential, getting these folks out and across the river to our small businesses here on Main Street, or even back in through here off of Temple Street, that would be such a win for the city.
If I may, Director Cummings, you're pointing to their parking lot. The building is actually to the right of the Pan Am.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, right there, yeah. But that would be such a win for the city. It would be such a great benefit, and that's not lost on me. And I'm glad to hear people are out there walking it at noontime, and I just want to encourage more people to really do that.
I said it before in the original presentation. I'll say it again now because I don't see it. But I just hope we don't miss a potential opportunity of what people want to do. But we're talking about the decommissioning the Pan Am Bridge. Well, the Pan Am Bridge was rebuilt, I think, in the mid-30s, and that was after the Great Crown Hill Fire, because that was ground zero. That's where the fire started that devastated the Crown Hill neighborhood. I think it would be an opportunity to miss. That was such a community impact that was devastating. The next thing that came along was World War II. That was equally devastating. I think, probably deserves some stone or marker. I don't know if maybe we can take a collection to school for pennies for the kids to mark it. I don't know, but Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, just one other thing. Having worked in that BAE building for more years than I'd like to admit, we used to look out the windows in the river, and when the water was clear, it's amazing what you'd see at the bottom of the river. Now it's all cleaned up. And BAE has built a deck off of their cafeteria.
Right in through here.
Right, yeah, somewhere right in there. And people eat outside and enjoy the river now.
It's really cool.
Can we put the bridge right to the cafeteria?
Being the other side of the Pan Am.
Director Cummings.
Thank you. So Alderman O'Brien, to your point about what I would suggest is what you're suggesting is a historical marker.
Either a little park or something like that. It was an important part of Nashua's local history. There is a generation that was around at that time that found it very devastating. It would be. Although I don't think it was many civilian loss of life, but there was a loss of civilian fortune. And you gotta remember, that was during the Depression years, so.
So we have VHB scoped out, and actually Director Sullivan has been more taking the lead on this than I have, but through the Historic District Committee here in the city, this project has gone before that board. There has been some conversations about doing exactly what you're talking about. So I just want to make sure that Director Sullivan has this on his list, because we've already asked VHB to develop a package for us to appropriately mark along the route some places that have historical significance. And I think this might be one of the places that we could develop a marker of sorts.
And if you need a statue, somebody to model a statue of a firefighter, I'll volunteer for the municipal good, but yes, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment directly to Director Cummings' comments that we actually have performed outreach to several groups, including the Conservation Commission and the Historic District, proactively in the interest of getting just that kind of comment. And so we had a discussion with the HDC about 2 months ago. We intend to continue those conversations to ensure that they're involved in the process and the design as it progresses and the construction as it progresses. And just that type of comment was one that was very well received, and we look forward to working together with the design team to implement that kind of recommendation. So your comment is very well taken and appropriate.
Very good. Alderman Dow?
Yeah, just real quickly, my grandparents lost their home in that fire. And I have on my phone at least 40 pictures of the fire. And there's a lot of history available on that fire. And it did start on that bridge.
Okay, further questions to Director Cummings regarding the Riverfront project? Seeing none. Director Cummings, I think your presentation on, give me a second here, on the West Pearl Street, if there's any additions, can you check with our administrative assistant, Donna Graham, just to keep the minutes updated? If you can submit your your presentation. Like I said, I think you did this one in December. I think it's still of record, but however, could you just go over, see if there's a need for that? And also equally as well, the Riverfront project, could you check with our administrative assistant Donna on that as well too, to keep the, introduce them as part of the minutes of the meeting. Okay, all right, without any further ado, we did take out order, and I thank you very much, 022-020. So therefore we have no unfinished business, no new business resolutions, and like I say, we took care of the new business ordinances. And we do not have anything tabled in committee, and so I'll open it up to general discussion, remarks by Alderman. We'll combine the two. Anybody have anything? Okay, seeing none. Open it up to public comment. Anybody wishing to have public comment? Nobody in the chamber? Nobody online? Okay. This is Alderman Dow's big moment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify. Oh, excuse me, roll call. Alderman Jettie.
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about it, Mr. Como. Thank you, sir. Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Como.
Yes.
Alderman Dow.
Yes.
And Alderman O'Brien votes yeas. 4 yeas, motion carries. We'll declare the meeting closed at 8:24. Thank you, everybody.